Chaf Beis, the Rebbe's Kapitel. Shiram Alois, Ledov, Yitzimach, Yemini, Beis, Adonai Neilei. Oim Deis, Hayir Agleinu, Sharai, Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim, Havduya, Ki Yeshukhudu Lo Yachdav. Shom Ol Shvatim, Shifti Yoidus, Yisrael, Hoideis, L'Shem Adinai. Shom Yoshuch Kisais, L'Mishpa Kisais, L'Beis David. Shalosh Shalem Yerushalayim Shalom Vayich, Yishal Mechelech, Shalom Vanasayich, Manach Hagrei, Amarna Shalom Bach, Mandeis Adonai Heinu, Avaksha Tevla.
Rabbi Yosef, Si'i Sove V'Einayich, Uri'i Kulam Nikbitzu Ba'olach. Raise your eyes and look around and look how many people have gathered together here this morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, on a frigid Chicago day. There isn't a faction of our community that isn't represented here today, a true testimony. To the Nifter's dedication and his passion for Achdus. I'm going to leave my remarks for later, and I'm going to call upon Rav Daniel Rakash Lita to give over the first aspect.
We've gathered here this morning, we must be and eulogize a truly unique and multifaceted personality. With a people such as ours, terms like unique and multifaceted are not unusual. However, in the case of Dr. Walder, we rise to a completely different frame of reference. Dr. Walder operated fully, comfortably in two very different worlds. One being the world that I know, the Jewish community, the other being the world of academics, scientists, and businessmen. In both, he was absolutely stellar, and both will claim him as their own, and in a way that could be correct. While it is true that he operated in these worlds and even joined them together, in the end, though, all knew that he had turned his gaze to the heavens. He was a man on a mission, a lofty mission. Using a brilliant mind with an open heart, he blazed new paths for Hashem and his people. The Talmud tells us Rabbi Meir Avedayik Bishma. Rabbi Meir would draw inspiration about a person by analyzing their name. The idea being that a name is not merely arbitrary or haphazard, it can contain clues about a person's character. Dr. Walder's Hebrew name was Yosef, the Hebrew for Joseph. When I applied Rabbi Meir's practice to Dr. Walder, I realized in short order that there were some very interesting correlates between Dr. Walder and the original Yosef of the Bible. The biblical Yosef embodied the attribute of humility. The verse that introduces us to maturing Yosef tells us that Yosef was a shepherd with his brothers, and he can be found with the children of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. The Shalach HaKodesh points out Yosef's humility, and although Yosef had a very high standing in the family hierarchy by virtue of his father Yaakov's pronounced love for him, and as his being the oldest son of the principal wife Rachel, yet in his humility was very close to the sons of the secondary wives and showed them respect. Rashi adds another layer. He says that Yosef, who rose to be the viceroy of Egypt, remained the same Yosef who shepherded the sheep with his brothers. He didn't change. Humility is a difficult trait to maintain when a person achieves great success and recognition. It is all the more difficult when you achieve this in multiple fields, as Dr. Walder did. The scientific world, the business world, the philanthropic world, the world of leadership and power. Yet with all of it, Dr. Walder didn't change. Always approachable and respectful, the humble Yosef, unchanged by fame and fortune. As his philanthropic largesse grew, he did not search for the limelight or grand announcements of his generosity. He remained simple. There is another facet of Dr. Walder's humility. We're taught in Pirkei Avot, Ezehu Ashir HaSomer Bechalko. Who was a person who was considered wealthy? Somebody who was happy with his lot. The underlying principle of this passage is to be satisfied with what one has, not to constantly look for the upgrade. Contentment and sufficiency. This was the Dr. Walder I knew. I recall, if I remember correctly, he drove a Buick, not the newest model either. When he certainly could have upgraded to a much more expensive car, he chose not to. Another facet of his humility. In an age which is defined by self-promotion and ostentation, surely we could learn from this valuable trait of humility and modesty. Another trait of the biblical Yosef was the fear of God. As Yosef himself says, Et ha-Elohim ani yareh, it is God that I fear. Dr. Walder was God-fearing, but not just in the common sense. He truly feared God. One way he did this was to proudly display his observance wherever he went and with whomever he met. But he went farther. There were no shortcuts. His business was Shomer Shabbos, Sabbath observant, closed for business. An enterprise of that size, with global reach, closed on Shabbat, no loopholes. Additionally, he understood that halach applied to business just as it did in one's private life. So in one of his pioneering steps, Dr. Walder brought in a halachic consultant for his business, someone to oversee and respond to halachic questions from the inside. Today, many businesses employ such an approach, but Dr. Walder was almost 2 decades ahead of the curve. You will hear a veritable plethora of terms of acclaim about Dr. Walder, and they are all true. Rising possibly above the others will be visionary, pioneer, trailblazer, innovator. Let's talk about that. The biblical Yosef was a brilliant person who developed innovative solutions to problems, such as his solution for the 7 years of famine. Pharaoh was so impressed that he announced, Ein navon v'chacham kamocha. There is no one as wise and intelligent as you. Dr. Walder was brilliant and an innovative scientist with many patents to his name, and who built IDT, the world's leading provider of synthetic DNA. Understandably, when he studied a problem, he broke it down to a molecular level, and then he came up with a solution. When Dr. Walder studied the complicated matter of Jewish condition in America, he realized it came down to education. So he analyzed Jewish education, and in short order, he introduced multiple trailblazing projects. Walder Education, providing resources for teachers. Walder Science, to introduce Jewish children to STEM. Both of these are teeming with innovative and effective programs. In fact, when the Novominsker Rebbe Zechron Avracha visited Walder Education, he was so impressed that he spoke to Torah U'Sorah to use it as a model across the country. And then there is the Kehillah Fund, a brilliant approach to the puzzle of tuition for Jewish schools. We are all in it together approach that harnesses the power of community to simultaneously raise funds for tuition while raising the awareness of communal responsibility to Jewish education. The additional benefit of this program is that it provides assistance without negatively impacting the dignity of the parents. Now, don't for a moment think that these big projects distracted Dr. Walder from a more regular philanthropy, because it simply didn't. He touched and supported every organization in the city and beyond. Largesse that I heard from close was on occasion on the edge of what even he could afford. But it wasn't only organizations that received his attention and aid, so did regular folk. I understand that on many occasions, when he would hear of an individual who lost a job, he would find him a place in his business, assistance that maintains in the dignity of the recipient. Maimonides teaches us there are 8 levels of tzedakah, charity. The highest level is to provide a person with a job so that he should not need to ask for alms, maintaining dignity. The rabbis tell us that one of the purposes of a hesped is yakra dechaye, to serve the living, to draw the attributes and virtue of the departed so one can learn from them in order to fill the void their passing creates. My friends, there is so much to learn here. May Hashem give us the ability and strength to assume some of the responsibility that His absence will place upon us. It's very important, though, to realize that everything that Dr. Walder did, he did not act alone. He had a very devoted partner, continues to grow and expand the legacy. Of course, I speak of Mrs. Walder. She was not a partner in the generic sense, but they actually did it together. If I recall correctly, when we met with him some 2 decades ago to discuss a significant contribution to our building fund, Mrs. Walder was in the room, and we presented to both of them equally. Now she continues on the course they built together with the Walder Foundation and Walder Ventures. Our deepest condolences to her and her entire family. I will conclude with one last thought. We live in dark times. Chaos and discord reign. A time when clear moral leadership is vital. Yet history shows us that in times like this, in an act of hastarat panim, the concealment of the divine presence, Hashem will take leaders from us, just as the clouds gather. Maybe this is to galvanize us to rise to the occasion and assume responsibilities. This is such a time and such an occasion. I have no doubt Dr. Walder will serve as a melitz yosher on behalf of his dear family, the community that he cared so deeply about, and all of Klal Yisrael.
Moshe Chaim Walder.
Because I'll say, the neshama of the nifter is aware and he hears every word of the hespedim. It means a lot to him to step in the transfer to the next world, to his real home. Abba, you know you're listening to everything. The word Dr. Walder, people always tell me Dr. Walder, so many ma'asim tovim, so far-reaching, so many individuals that he impacted. The task to give you the cover that you deserve is too enormous. It's too hard for anyone. Try to learn from you. Contemplate what we're missing here. When you went upstairs, yesterday, the day before, I don't know anymore. Just tell from my vantage point, 73 years ago, there was a Tinok Shenishpa Ben Goyim, he didn't know anything about Judaism. He didn't know anything. He didn't know anything about Judaism. Had no clue until one day, 29 years ago, he found out what Judaism was about. He found out that Judaism had a chachma to it. It had a wisdom to it. And when he found out that Torah and Judaism has a chachma to it, In 2 weeks, he totally changed everything, his whole life. His whole life, he changed it around in 2 weeks. What I was told, he went from a person on a motorcycle and a ponytail to wearing a black hat, totally ready to go. He heard about the emes of Judaism and he went in a second, right when he heard. The ripples of your decision 29 years ago. 29 years ago, you made a decision and you took action so strong. How could anyone do that in 2 weeks? You made such a big decision and it changed. The ripples are still affecting all of Klal Yisrael today. The me, I know me, the whole me is totally based on that decision. You heard the emes and you totally changed around. How could anyone do it so fast? I wasn't a very easy teenager. I wasn't an easy teenager at all. I want to talk about what you did for me. What you did for me. I owe you everything. I couldn't ask for any better father in the world. You gave me everything. I remember one conversation in particular when I was going through my struggles, putting you through so much. I put you through so much. You told me we were deciding. I had a thought to switch schools. I still remember in the backyard. I remember that day clearly. You told me when I just was wanting to decide, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that, maybe I should change, make a decision for the worse. You told me, and it was so clear, you told me you love me no matter what I'm going to do. You want to be sure when I make my decision that you love me no matter what. You told me that. Oh, you gave me my life. You calmed me down. You saved me from my confusion. It was so clear how much you loved me. Oh, you gave me everything. I came to my learning in Yeshiva. I've never seen, I don't know anyone who has parents like you anymore. Total support, financial, emotional, everything. It was total. There was nothing. There was no strings. There's no one who has that. You gave me everything. All the kingdom I need to learn in Yeshiva. Everything. I owe you so much. I owe you so much. From the beginning, every step. You're a Yochid in that. Who does that? So rare. I want to talk now a little bit about my vantage point from the Tzibor. The Tzibor. Your actions in the Tzibor. Everywhere I went, people said, Dr. Walder, they knew you, they loved you, they sang your praises. It was always such a schus to be in your Dalit Amos. I'm grateful for Hashem for giving me that opportunity, a surreal experience every time being near you. Such a schus, such an honor. Hashem was mizaka you. He gave you so many schusim. Hashem was mizaka you with so many schusim to help others, individual lives, Jewish bracha in this world. He gives it to someone who's worthy, someone who is Zakai. Hashem he saw you as worthy. He saw your intentions as pure. He wanted you to be the vehicle for his bracha in this world. I don't know how Hashem makes the decisions, but he decided that you're worthy for all of this chosim, all of this impact. He decided it should be you. Been told, I don't know. They say Rosh Hashanah B'chol Davar Shebekdusha in Chicago that all the organizations, anything it means anything in spirituality in Chicago, that you would be the first, you would get in charge, you would make it happen. Hashem was mizaki you. He thought you were worthy. Hashem makes the decisions. How am I supposed to know? You're his vehicle for bracha in this world. And now Hashem decided, Pitom, 100% sudden, no one knew this was coming. You were sick for a long time, but no one knew this was coming. And Rega, 1 second, he decided, right now, I want my son back. I want my vehicle for bracha back, and I want him now. And that's it. You can't stop me. Because I am done. He wants you back. I want to talk about the way that you gave chesed. You didn't do chesed. It wasn't just chesed. I want to talk about your mentality, how you thought about things. I still remember, I'll never forget. One time, we were in the Kaisel. We were walking in the Kaisel. You told me, Ushachayim, do you want to know the secret? Do you want to know the secret of my success? I said right away, of course I want to know the secret. What's the secret of your success? You told me 99.99999%. It's all Hashem. The other 0.00001% is just knowing that it's from Hashem. That's all. That was your mentality. That's the secret of your success. That's what you really believed. You're so simple. Rabbi Rocco got it right. If one wants to define your simplicity, it's that Buick Sabre. That Buick Sabre, you always had the oldest Buick Sabre company car. You couldn't put the key in, it wouldn't open in the freezing cold winter. So simple. Your 613 apartment. So simple. Incredible. That 613 apartment. So simple. You were so simple. You just did what you did. I remember 2709 Sherwood. As a kid growing up, the revolving door, people outside. You would tell them if you were in the middle something with a kid, maybe eating a few things, he would always say, okay, come back in 20 minutes. I said, I don't understand. Like, it's late, it's 11 o'clock, like, maybe tomorrow. No, just tell him 15 more minutes. Tell him to come back at 11, 11:30, 12, whatever, it didn't matter. There was a line out the door. There was a line, a revolving door, and you sat with each person. You sat with each person, and you sat and you listened, like you had nothing else in the world. You were just listening to each person. I can't believe I saw that. I can't believe I saw that with my own eyes. You held everyone's sorrows. You just listened, and each person that went there, they felt like they were doing you a chesed. They felt like they were doing you a chesed. That was your manner. That was how you did it. I was totally different. I never understood it. I never understood it. Your mentality was you had to give it. You had to give it. What else? I had it. Oh, there's so much to learn from you, Abba. at the end. 7.5 years. 7.5 years if you sue him. 7.5 years. That's longer than World War II. They used to him was crazy. It was not wrong. Who could understand? It's not imaginable what you went through. Mentally, emotionally, physically. What you went through that was purifying you, afflicted you. Oh, he purified you so much that you sue him. Oh, I can't imagine 7.5 years. Oh, you didn't complain. You accepted it all. It was so rare to see you complain. If it was to complain, it was to crux you out a complaint to express what you needed. Oh, there's so much to say about you. You went upstairs now. You went to your real house. You went to Mama. You can't do anything here anymore. We're here still. You gave me so much. I need to give you back. We all need to give you back. Anyone who feels connected. Anyone who feels connected and wants to take anything on. Anything this was. Yosef Walder, my father, he will benefit. He will benefit tremendously. He can't do any more work. He can't do any more work, Yosef Walder. We appreciate it. He appreciates it. Anything, any small kamala, whatever you need. Mahasham Dima. We all call upon him.
We all gathered together, do the Kavod Achim to Yosef ben Mordechai, to Chroim Levracha. Yosef was a beloved husband to his Ishes Chayil, Shir Malka, a beloved father to Catherine, Mashachaim, Mordechai, friend of every Yid, and above all, a true Eved Hashem. The loss is enormous. You cannot fathom what this Yid has accomplished in his lifetime. Besides the loss to his immediate family, hundreds of Yisraelim have lost their father. If Yosef would adopt Yisraelim, he would adopt orphans. He would pay for their education, for their upbringing. He would marry them off, pay for their weddings, and then pay for their children. It wasn't just paying. These were his own. As we've just heard, Klal Yisrael's lost a unique individual. An individual that cared about everyone and anyone. A Yid that rejoiced the joys of others and was truly pained by the pain of others. And he didn't just say so. He put his money where his mouth. personally took interest and care of Eden that no one else would bother even looking at them. He believed in people and their abilities. He saw strengths in people that they themselves weren't even aware of. And he helped them realize and actualize them. Yosef was the Yid that was pained that Mashiach wasn't here. The whole Kehillah Fund was an idea that was born as a result of his pain that Mashiach wasn't here. He wanted to unite Klal Yisrael behind Chen Chabana, so that Mashiach would come quicker. Where else in the world is there a Kehillah Fund that represents Achdus on the highest level, where individuals contribute to Moises Achinuch that they would never send their child, where Moises Achinuch receive money from people that they would never take into their Moises. An unbelievable sign of Achdus. The idea of Achdus is something that is usually talked about and only exists in theory. Rabbi Yosef and the Baba L'chaim Toib Maruchim Yizeshes Chayim made it a reality. And it's become the model which other communities have tried replicating, though unsuccessful. Chicago is a unique place as a result of having Rabbi Yosef Walder and the Baba L'chaim Toib Maruchim is Eshes Chayil and Amritz. Rabbi Raka before drew parallels between the Nifter, Rabbi Yosef, and the original Yosef, Yosef HaTzadik. We had our own Yosef HaTzadik. Malka Meniachli, Rabbi Raka left over a few parallels that he didn't mention. Yosef HaTzadik was a dreamer, but not a choyle, not just merely a dreamer. He was a balach halomas. He took ownership of his dreams. He took ownership of his dreams to make them real. It was a Yosef HaTzadik who didn't allow his brothers or anyone else get in the way of fulfilling his dreams. A Yosef HaTzadik who didn't only pursue his own dreams, but interpreted the dreams of others and assisted them in fulfilling their dreams. A Yosef HaTzadik who was Mekarev, the less fortunate. Those who his brothers would be mezalzel on them. And he taught those people how to dream themselves. Yosef HaTzadik was the mashbir l'chol haaretz. He sustained the entire world. Our Yosef HaTzadik was an unparalleled Baltzavak. Yet the Yosef HaTzadik, who after all of that claimed to be, I'm Yosef Achich, I'm just your brother. As Chazal say, Shayif Ayil, Shayif Nofik, Lemarzik Nibus of the Nafshe. simplicity that was brought out before, just made nothing of himself. Someone didn't know him and saw him on the streets, one would never guess that he had a penny. It was never about him. It was about the Tzibrach Megid. It was about the Klal. It was about Achdus. It was about the Rebbeinu Shalom. As Moshe Chaim mentioned, we all owe Rabbi Yosef. And we owe his Eshes Chaim. We need to continue his legacy. The legacy that Mrs. Walder, Yibad al-Chamta Maruchim, has built together with her husband, and upon which she has continued to build. A legacy of Achdus, the legacy of providing education for every Jewish child, no matter their background. A legacy of care for every individual. We ask Rabbi Yosef, our Yosef HaTzadik, to be a Gitta Beta for his Eshes Chaya, Bodel Chaim Tov Baruch. Stood by his side with tremendous Mesiras Nefesh all of these years and helped him build the empire. Torah of Chesed, of Achdus. He should be a Gitta Beta for his children, his grandchildren. The Chicago community, we served with such devotion. The entire Klal Yisrael, who we loved so much. He asked Rabbi Yosef to stand before the Kisei HaKavod and rightfully demand. He has done his part to bring Klal Yisrael together. That Mashiach should come. Hashem Yishprosh should say that Torah Seinu die. On behalf of the entire Chicago community, ask Rabbi Yosef, Burma and Mordechai, please forgive us not providing you the proper cover. Mocha Hashem Alekim and Melkel. Mordechai Walder.
Just want to start by thanking all of you for gathering here and the outpouring of love come from all of you within the last day. It's really made this process manageable. And you know what he meant to you, but I don't know if you know what you meant to him. You came to him at a time in his life where he was lost. He felt alienated. He had just lost his own father. Gone through divorce and remarriage and moving to a new place. He didn't know his place in the world, but he found comfort here. He found stability here. You were his anchor. And that's why he reciprocated so much. You obviously know all the different initiatives he spearheaded. Has been mentioned, Walder Science, Walder Education, all the people he helped in Eretz Yisrael, the endless Mishulachim who would come to the house and would have such incredible patience for them. But the thing he cared about most, what he considered his baby, was the Kehillah Fund. Because he felt it allowed people to transcend their boundaries of denomination and particular group that they may identify with within the community. He didn't see the community as separate subgroups of Chabad, of Hasidish, of modern. They were all one to him, and he loved you all. You all knew him as Dr. Walder, but to me, he was Abba. So I want to talk about my relationship with him over my life. He was my role model. He was my compass for what to do in the world. Anytime I felt lost or disoriented, I could look to him and know where to go. As Moshe Chaim said, whenever you went anywhere, people knew about Dr. Walder. They were surprised that he could even be related to him. And they were in awe of him. But they were not in awe of him because of any of his worldly accomplishments or scientific achievements or any money that he might have made. It was the fact that in spite of that, he embodied kindness and humility and purity. His motivations were pure. And that's what he taught me most. Make sure your motivations are pure and you're walking in the way of Hashem. Everything will lay itself out before you as it should. And as Rabbi Raka mentioned, he excelled as both a community leader in the Jewish community, but also within the scientific community. He changed the field of genomics, and so many discoveries were due to the work that he did. The ripple effects will be known for generations. And he taught me how to harmonize the two, living both in the Jewish community and having that be your source of strength to perform and make an impact in the world at large. And in my own life, he guided me through my early education, through high school, and as Moshe Chaim, I wasn't the easiest teenager either. And helped me move into Eretz Yisrael when I went to yeshiva. And 7.5 years ago, he started feeling ill. And I came back home after I finished college to care for him, and our roles reversed. The support he offered me for my whole life, I felt obligated to offer him. And even with all the struggles that he had throughout that time period, in his ultimate decline, to the point where he had difficulty walking, it was hard for him to speak. The light of his neshama shined brightest at that time. Whenever I walked in the room, his eyes lit up. He said, "Buddy, tell me what's new." And every time I left his presence, he told me he loved me. I spoke with him just Monday, telling him I would come back for Pesach. And the last words he said was that he loved me. I love you so much, Abba. It's not going to be the same without you. We're all here to walk in your path, You live on through us, through the good deeds we do, through the Torah we learn, and through our connection with Hashem. You are here with us forever. I'd like to just leave you with a few pieces of wisdom that he imparted on me throughout my life, and that you might take with you and remember him by. The first was to be driven by kindness. In whatever pursuit you have in life, center your motivation on kindness. You would always tell me, my only reason to go grow this company, to expand it, is to give tzedakah. He would incentivize himself to grow the company by making commitments for the next year of tzedakah. That was his motivation, and that was his purity. One of the first things he told my mom when he met her was he asked her, should I grow the company? Should I grow the company? She didn't really know what she was in for at that time. But Baruch Hashem, she said yes. The second piece of advice is that when you're having your own internal struggles and you don't know where to turn, find someone who's struggling with the same thing and offer them support. Through that, your refuel will come. And I saw that in many different occasions of how he helped people. And the last is, whenever you walk into a situation, find the people who need help most and offer it to them. Not only in monetary support, but in moral support and being their friend. As Rabbi Torsky mentioned, we had people who were staying in nursing homes and had no community, no friend. He embraced them. He became their best friend. And we had them over every week for Shabbos. That was what he valued most. There was also a time, I remember, when one Meshulach came and he had nothing. He had no clothes, no wardrobe, no place to stay. My father took him in, he gave him a room in our house, and he gave him his entire wardrobe. Who does that? Who is that selfless? It's nobody. And later on, one of the orphans that he took in was a refugee from Yemen. His father was one of the last rabbis there. And he took him into our house, he lived with us, and he helped him get an education. And he became my brother. And Menachem is here with us, even though he's in Israel right now. And so many people owe their life to my father. So I offer that to keep his legacy strong, we embody his wisdom in how we move through the world. Min hashamayim tenachema.
Rabbi Posner.
It's not Chabad custom to deliver a spadim. I don't think I could really describe Yosef properly. Instead, rather, also what I've seen in terms of how we can learn lessons from him. Pasuk says, "Achayitin aliboy," that the living shall take it hard. There are lessons which we can learn from Rabbi Yosef. He was a unique individual, but there are things which we can do to emulate him, at least to some degree, which would be very good for us and be a tribute to him. I remember when he first showed up, so to speak, on our doorstep, about 30 years ago. He was then, shortly after his father had passed away, and he was asking questions, thinking about life. And his sister, Diane Gassel, suggested he should go see Chabad and go see Rabbi David Siegel, Skokie Koilo, which he did. It was actually, I think, his first real experience of like living Yiddishkeit, other than what he saw by Diane, was the Purim Suda with Rabbi Siegel. But he began coming to us regularly and doing Shabbos with Rabbi Reitzes, which I think that was probably the thing that had the most dramatic impact on him. And he rather rapidly decided this is for him. I don't know if it was exactly 2 weeks, but it was very rapid. I remember speaking to him actually, telling him that you're going much too quickly. Things which you take on so quickly are very easy to drop. Much better to go more deliberately and think about what you're doing each step and make a commitment to it. That way it'll be enduring, it'll be lasting. He said, no, I know exactly what I'm doing, and of course he did. The truth is that we can't really know everything he did. I'll give one example. We all know that he gave tzedakah to many, many organizations. But the way he did it, as far as I was able to tell, is that he had a number of gaboy tzedakah, who would give each one a list of organizations that they should send the money to. So each gaboy didn't know what the other one was doing. So nobody saw the whole picture. So for example, at one point I was distributing tzedakah on his behalf to like around 25 organizations. At the same time, Colin Friedman was distributing to some other list, and the Samuel Siegel had another list, and I don't know who others gabayim were, and none of us knew what the other one was doing. But his love for giving tzedakah is something which we need to learn. What was one experience? As was mentioned, he challenged himself by making pledges and thereby pushing the envelope, hoping to make a bigger keli so that Hashem should have to give him more brachas so he should be able to fulfill the pledges. So there was a time when part of my responsibility was I'd have to go luchim 2 or 3, 4 times a month. Are you ready to write this month's checks yet? Sometimes it was towards the end of the month, sometimes the beginning of the next month. And at one time, he said, okay, yeah, let's do it right now. So he takes a couple of checkbooks, and he goes to Avram Menashe Siegel's office, the executive vice president of finance, or whatever his title was, and he takes the 2 checkbooks, and he goes in to the room, and he has his list on the yellow legal pads, and he takes half the list and says, Avram Menashe, here, you write these checks, and I'll write those checks. And the 2 of them are sitting and writing out checks to different organizations, about 25 checks. And I'm standing there watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. These are 2 busy people running a huge global company, and they're writing checks over here. It would be much simpler if you would just write one check, write me a check for the lump sum, and I'll already distribute it all. And anyway, I have to put it all into envelopes and stamp it and everything. Anyway, I'll do the checks too. As I'm thinking that, he says that he looks up with a big smile, and he says, this is so much fun writing these checks. So I realized, keep my mouth shut, I can't take this pleasure away from him. I didn't say anything. About 6 months later, he figured it out on his own, and he said, from now on, I'm going to just give you one check and you take care of it. But that pleasure of giving tzedakah, we all give tzedakah, whether it's dropping a dollar in the pushka or when someone comes around with a green card, but to give with pleasure, to be able to look up with a smile and say, this is so much fun. That's something which we need to learn from him, that kais of tzedakah. In an area which no one has mentioned at all, he was very careful about davening. He thought about each word of davening. He thought, and learning. An example which covers both. We have very little time here. Once he told me that he was thinking about it. So we say in Karbanos, we say that the Kapara says that achas l'shishim l'shivim shana ha'isabaj l'shayim l'chatzayim. That once in 60 or 70 years from the Ketores, they only made half the amount because they had accumulated extra. There was shirayim, so you only had to make half. So he was wondering why 60 or 70 years? A mathematician, math was one of his things. So why 60 or 70 years? He first noticed how many of us have said kabbanis twice a day and never even think about it. He said, yeah, whatever, don't think about it. He thought about it and he figured it out. I don't remember exactly his explanation, but he figured out why it was 60 or 70 years. So it's another thing we could learn, to think about every word of davening as we're saying it. He always had this idea of giving, even from before. Back, he was, I think, the biggest benefactor to the local Montessori school in Iowa City. As he got more into Yiddish, he got also bigger asagas in giving tzedakah. At one point, he said, "I have three main focuses of tzedakah." Chabad Skokie, the Skokie community Kailul, because it had been helpful for him, and the Shluchim office, because the Shluchim office had a program, it was developing a program of early childhood education, which was going to be rolled out across the whole country, wherever the Jewish people anywhere would know they can get quality education, and he was very much into chinuch. Of course, his hasagas continued to grow beyond that as he basically saw a big world, and his appetite and his vision grew. But to see needs to be appreciative. We all could do that in some degree. He had no need for gashmis. So this is, I think, was mentioned before, but it's something which we can learn. We don't need stuff. When he came out of Erev Pesach, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he came knocking on the door. Back 30 years ago, and he decided he wants to make an office in Skokie. The company's based in Iowa. To make an office in Skokie, we had some space we weren't using, so he wants to rent that space. He says, here, you need to renovate it, do whatever is going to work for you, I'll pay you rent, and we'll share the space. So for several years, I shared a desk with him. The desk, in the days when he was there was his desk, the days he wasn't there, it was my desk. He didn't need his own desk. He didn't need it. And someone was making a Sefer Torah. So they wanted to have a keser to put on the Sefer Torah. So I knew that someone had given a gift of a keser to him. So I asked him if he could borrow it for the Chosas Sefer Torah. So he came and says, here, tell him to keep it. He had no use for stuff. It's an important thing. You don't need gashmis. You don't need stuff. You say, as Smart mentioned, you give away his own clothes. You don't need stuff. By the way, speaking of the Buick, he lent me the Buick when we needed to go to the Chasana. Dizzy and I and Echman drove to Pittsburgh for the Chasana in Dr. Walder's Buick. And the appreciation for every single person, as was mentioned over and over again, but it's true, something which we need to learn from. There are people which we tend to overlook. People, there's the cool people, and then there's the rest of us, and then there's a few people who don't even make it into the rest of us. And we sort of sort of tolerate them, maybe help them out a little bit. The love that he had for every single person was simply amazing. To walk into the house, you guys lived there, you lived all the time. I remember walking to the house, Motzei Shabbos, and he was busy serving Malava Malka to people that nobody else would give him the time of day. And it wasn't just, oh, he wrote a check, I took care of them. No, he was there and he was actually serving them the food. Right? Those are things which anyone could do. Everybody's got a house, everybody's got some food in your house, everyone's got a kitchen table, and everyone knows somebody who needs a meal. Serve them, give them something to eat, leftovers from Shabbos. What's the big deal? We all could do that. And he always ready to give in every way. He taught his, I guess, a way of showing appreciation. So when my daughter was a little bit bored in school and needed a little bit extra, so he used to come every Sunday afternoon and teach her math. Sort of advanced stuff she wouldn't be getting in school, just to keep her mind going. Again, we all have things we can give. Doesn't have to be money, skills, something we know. And there are ways of helping, reaching out to other people, doing things for them. And these are all lessons we could learn. Obviously, the tremendous bitachon which he had. There were numerous times when he had more bitachon, more earth than Kaylee. There were times when he actually had to dial back on pledges for temporarily, whatever, but that never deterred him, from doing the same thing over and over again, right? And then, right, okay, we got to cut everybody by 20%, okay, or nothing for the next 6 months, but then it was back to it again. And in the long term, it worked. So the tremendous bitachon to know that he's doing this, as was mentioned. I remember saying that he has the company. He has the company because it gives Eden parnasa, and because whatever money it makes, he can give to tzedakah. So that bitachon, the sense of purpose, something which we can learn from, which we should also realize that we're there to do what Hashem wants to do through us, to be a means of chesed and helping other people. I could go on and on. I really should not have a clock here. I should have a calendar. But it was simply amazing to see over the so unpretentious. I walked in and out of his office whenever I felt like, it was not that. I was on the phone. He just let me come back later. Didn't need to knock on the door. And now we're at the point where we all need to rise to the occasion to pay back, to do the things he did. Just as I was sitting here, I noticed somebody. I remember when years and years ago he just walked into some institution's office, walks into the director's office, and says, "Tell me, what do you do here?" And the person explained what their thing was, and said, "And how do you fund it?" Okay, fine. How much money can I give you? And from then he started every month giving money. And we can't, I don't know whether we all can give that kind of money, but to be aware, to see things that are happening, notice the people that are doing things, that are doing good things, find a way to be helpful, to be part of it. And each one of us, through our way, carry on the example that he showed for us. Keeps him alive, keeps it going. He lives on in our actions and our emulating it. And the idea is that he should should take his persistence as he goes on high, and I bet he could overcome his own nature, not to ask for anything, not to the Eibusher and say, "Look, I did for you over 30 years, more than you could have expected from me. Now it's time to ask for the payback. Do for us maybe more than we deserve, and send us a Mashiach immediately."
Yaakov Robinson.
very moved and inspired by the previous Maspidim, a bit shaken up. My condolences to Mrs. Walder, Shachai and Catherine Mordechai. Thank you for sharing your words and giving us a perspective from that side of the door, painting the broader strokes, the beauty, the greatness of Dr. Walder. All this clearly shows that we have no clue the greatness of who he was. On my phone, I have a special photo album of pictures from opportunities when I had a chance to meet with Gedolim and Tzaddikim from around the world. There's only one picture in that album of someone who's not officially a rabbi. It's a picture from June 19th, 2014, just about 10 years ago, of myself with Dr. Walder. Something that I intuitively felt that picture belonged in that album. With the few minutes I have this morning, I just want to explain in part of why I naturally felt this way. To share an appreciation of Dr. Walder Zatzal, for my experiences with him, my witnessing his greatness, and working together with the Walder family on behalf of the Walder organizations, the Gila Fund, Walder Education, and Walder Science. Dr. Walder was a nefesh adin, a pure, precious, and beautiful soul. As was explained, he was exceedingly humble, unpretentious. One example is whenever he spoke to Kiruv groups, he had no problem sharing with them that he also came to Judaism later in life, and they can do the same. His heart was bigger than this entire city and the entire world. But lest one think he was just a nice guy, when necessary, he was firm and assertive. One time we had a very sticky political situation that we asked Dr. Walder to join us in the meeting to help mediate. And at one point, one of those involved in the conversation got a bit heated and wasn't thinking clearly. And Dr. Walder, with the same beauty and the same beautiful midas, he looked that person square in the eye and said to him, "It's clear to me you're not talking in the best interest of your organization. Please don't come to the next meeting." He was brilliant. Professor and scientist, the founder of IDT, whose research and treatment of illnesses is saving millions. And he made an indelible mark on the scientific community. I vividly and fondly remember the shiur he gave in our shul with Rabbi First on the halachas and DNA and halacha. A brilliant shiur, a brilliant presentation with such clarity. And later in life, he redirected all of this energy and all this brilliance into Limud HaTorah. And he had a deep connection with the Ribono Shel Olam. The Rebbe Posner just mentioned, I to this very day and will always remember how he davened to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ke'eved Lifnei Koinai, with such simplicity, beseeching the Kadosh Baruch Hu on his behalf, on his family behalf, and all of Klal Yisrael. In one word, he was simply a malach. Now the word malach means two things in the Hebrew language. A malach is a messenger, and a malach is an angel. 73 years ago, Hashem sent a messenger into this world. 29 years ago, which I just heard this for the first time right now, he was tapped on the shoulder by a Kadosh Baruch Hu and says, now it's time to fulfill your mission. And faithfully, for the last 29 years, he faithfully fulfilled that mission. So much so that I actually wonder, I really think he might be the second Malach as well, an angel from Shemayim. I don't want you to think, though, he never did anything wrong. By his own admission, he had one Aveira, he had one sin. He gave more than Chomish of his money away to tzedakah. And when someone pointed out this halacha to him, you're not supposed to give more than 20% away to tzedakah, he says, but there's so many people in need, I just can't help it. Maybe the worst thing that's said to me when I get to Shemayim. But we understand that he certainly did nothing wrong. The Chavetz Chaim tells us that investing in Torah doesn't count towards that 20%. That's a personal investment. That's for your own sake. And the other reason why it wasn't a problem is there's no halacha of giving your money towards your family. And he gave every penny he had towards his family, towards his immediate family, towards his adopted children, I still remember being in the house from Lava Malka, the Reish Shechter once, and seeing all the family pictures on the wall, including his children, and so many others. I asked him, who are these other individuals? He says, these are my adopted children, many of whom he and Mrs. Walder walked down the aisle at their chasana. And really, for all intents and purposes, every Jewish child in our city from the last 25 years, and arguably every Jewish child around the world, have been touched and inspired and assisted by the Walder family. The entire world are his family. And the amazing part is, as was mentioned before, is that no one was excluded. We say in the Seder, Kol dichvin yesi v'yecho, Kol ditzrich yesi v'yifsach. Everyone. No one was excluded. The first one is everyone in the world. But for the Korban Pesach, that's just for Yidden, and a special place for the Jewish community and all the support they provided. The others that would fall between the cracks, unnoticed, underappreciated, the underdog, Dr. and Mrs. Walder always paid attention to them. And when you fill in the cracks of a vessel, the vessel's stronger. And because of their efforts, we have a stronger Klal Yisrael. And this segues to my main point. In the file in my mind, forever, I will not file away Dr. Walder as someone who's a great Baal Tzedakah in quantity. I will always remember him for who he was and how he gave tzedakah. As was established, the vast amounts of tzedakah is unparalleled. As was mentioned, he included everybody, but how he did it. With a smile. As Chazal tell us, giving a smile while you give tzedakah has more value than the amount of money you give. Always making the recipients feel comfortable as if they are doing him the chesed, thoroughly and completely, diving deep into the projects he's involved in. With the purchase of our new building, he's the one who helped facilitate the loan in the best way possible, working in every detail. And also the innovation. The Chavetz Chaim tells us and teaches us, there's 3 ways one can achieve greatness in life. By investing their money, investing their time, and investing their energy. He's talking about in business and in Torah. But there's very few people in this world that invest their time, their money, and their energy to becoming better Balei Tzedakah and greater Balei Chesed. But Dr. and Mrs. Walder truly did it. The innovation of not just giving away tzedakah, but starting organizations to fill the gaps in the needs of our community. It's something that's so unique. And just listen to the impact. The Kehila Fund supports 11 schools. Over $15 million given out since its inception. Last year, $1 million was given. Over 1,700 donors. As was mentioned, what he felt his greatest accomplishment is not what was going out, but the unification of our community. Walder Education. 22,572 teachers served in the Walder Education Center itself. 420 schools. 5,520 cities from 120 countries. 2.4 million individual downloads of just one of their parsha sheets, and serving 82,000 students in the Midwest region. A small idea with everlasting impact. As mentioned before, this is all with anava, tremendous humbleness. One goal, taking care of others, never thinking about himself. So in conclusion, every day as I walk into my shul and I see the Walder name on the cornerstone of our building, it made me realize that metaphorically, if the city of Chicago had a cornerstone, the Walder name would be placed very prominently on that list for everything they've done for us and they've done for Klal Yisrael. Sometimes at the levaya of a great Baal Tzedakah, there could be some nervousness or apprehension. Is the family going to carry on that legacy? Are they going to have that same generosity of spirit? But Baruch Hashem, in this particular case, there's nothing for our community or Klal Yisrael to worry about. Mrs. Walder and her family and the Walder Foundation have already proven from their past, their present, and their vision and commitment to the future that this legacy will live on. Dr. Walder may not be with us physically, but he's very much alive, and his legacy and impact will be felt for generations. We start the Maggid section, like I said before, with the words Halach Ma'anya. Everyone asks the basic question of why are we doing this now? It's a little bit too late. You can't really invite guests. And one basic answer that's given is that we're davening for the Geula at the Seder. And we're starting with the Halach Ma'anya by inviting guests in and opening our doors by making a statement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I understand what's going to bring the Geula. It's generosity, openness, a big heart and care for others that's going to do it. Dr. Walder, please beseech HaKadosh Baruch Hu on our behalf. All the schusim that you have should stand behind you with strength. Be able to mevakesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the Geula and bring in the time of Bila Mavas L'Netzach U'macha Hashem Elokim Dima Mi'al Kol Panim.
Rabbi Menachem Linzer.
We are here this morning, as we've heard, to give kavod and honor to the memory of a truly remarkable individual, Dr. Joseph Walder, Yosef ben Mordechai, whose passing leaves a tremendous void, both in the scientific community, as well as in the hearts of all of us and the thousands of lives he touched through his boundless generosity and chesed. We've heard this morning such moving and inspiring remarks, family and from close Rabbanim. Apologize for, I'm going to touch on some of the same points, which means they were clearly the very strong aspects of who he was, and hopefully add a little bit as well. Dr. Walder was a pioneer and a visionary. His groundbreaking research in science of genetics and synthetic DNA revolutionized the field, and through the company he founded, made his discoveries available to scientists and researchers worldwide, leaving an indelible mark on the healthcare world. As his business became more successful and as he drew closer to Yiddishkeit, Dr. Walder saw an opportunity to impact the world in other ways. A colleague shared with me that he vividly remembers the parade of Jews meeting with Dr. Walder in the conference room of the IDT headquarters, Jews of all types. For Dr. Walder, it was a privilege to be able to help a fellow Jew, no matter who they were, and always without judgment. Later, he, together with his Eshes Chayil, Tibad L'Chaim, Mrs. Walder, started a number of incredible organizations where together they have been visionaries and pioneers. They founded the Walder Education, as we just heard some details about, supporting day school teachers in Chicago and well beyond. Walder Science, providing cutting-edge enrichment science opportunities to children in the Chicago area, and supporting many day schools with their science programs. And as Jews everywhere were struggling to pay yeshiva tuition, they pioneered the concept of the Kehila Fund, a communal approach to supporting Jewish education, which continues to grow and serve as a model for other communities. Dr. and Mrs. Walder knew and know that the future of the Jewish people depends on strong Jewish education, and that this is the best investment of all. They also taught us that a strong Jewish community depends on having strong yeshivot and day schools of all types. Not something everyone thinks about. Since October 7th, the entire Jewish world has been focused on Achdus, on coming together in unity. But Dr. and Mrs. Walder were Achdus visionaries well ahead of their time. Standing here as a representative of all the day schools of the Chicago community, I want to publicly give Hakaras Tov and thank you for all you have done to provide financial, educational support, and really tremendous chizuk for all of our schools and yeshivos. The success of our schools and the growth of our students in Torah, in mitzvos, science, resource, midos, every area is b'schus your vision and your tremendous generosity. I still remember the time vividly when Dr. Walder came to Hillel Torah with his giant model of the double helix when our 8th graders were studying genetics to teach them about DNA. such a modest and unassuming man, his eyes lit up as he launched into the wonders of the genetic building blocks of life. In this week's Parshat Tzav, in the context of the mitzvah for the Kohanim to maintain an Eish Tamid, an everlasting flame on the Mizbeach, the Torah uses the phrase, V'ha'esh al Mizbeach tukad bo lo sichbeh, that the fire should be lit on the Mizbeach in it, and it should not be extinguished. Commentaries all ask, why does the Torah use the phrase bo in it, as opposed to alav? The fire should be on the Mizbeach, on top of the altar. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polon, the Hasidic master, explained that bo refers to Aaron HaKohen, meaning, in order to bring down the heavenly fire, Aaron HaKohen first had to have the fire burning in him. Dr. Walder had a tremendous fire and passion for everything he did, whether for his groundbreaking work in science and genetics or his unprecedented philanthropic vision and generosity. The Rambam teaches that there are two paths to get close to Hashem. One is through studying Torah, and the other is through the study of science, delving into the wonders of Hashem's creations. Dr. Walder embodied both of these paths on a personal level for sure, and through his communal work in both of these areas, he has continued to bring our entire community closer to Hashem. His kindness, his humility, his passion have touched countless lives and will continue to guide and inspire us for many years to come. Yehi zichro baruch.
Rabbi Gadi Levi. Sharon Malcolm, Catherine, Chaim, Mordechai. Our community mourns with you. Looking around, I don't know why I'm standing over here. There are much more important people that should be standing over here, but I've been asked, so what I would like to do is just take a moment and share my vision of how I saw Dr. Walder. I would like to break it down into three perspectives of how I saw Dr. Walder. Dr. Walder as a scientist, as a Jewish scientist, Dr. Walder as a servant of Hashem, and Dr. Walder as a man of love and kindness. Before that, I think it's important that we mention that the Walder Foundation is built on 5 pillars: science and innovation, environmental sustainability, the performing arts, immigrant communities, and Jewish life. Dr. Walder is a Jewish scientist. As I'm sure you've all heard, Dr. Walder was a brilliant scientist and biochemist whose caring heart and brilliant mind changed the trajectory of the world of biochemistry and science. I'm not a scientist, nor am I a biochemist, but it's been clear to me from the first time that I met Dr. Walder that all of his research and his patents were directed towards one thing alone, and that is compassionately caring for others and improving this world. Dr. Walder's determination to improve our world knew no bounds. I was privy to conversations that happened at the Walder home. Dr. Walder had developed a method of trying to neutralize donated blood, allowing it to be safely transfused into individuals regardless of the blood type. But funding ran out on the project and he had to invest his efforts elsewhere. But Dr. Walder was truly a Jewish scientist. His understanding of science only developed and increased his relationship with Hashem, with God. Dr. Walder is a man of God. I seldomly saw Dr. Walder without his beloved blue
small pocket to Hilas Hashem Siddur. The pages worn down, well used. He read through it hundreds of prayers and psalms each day. With the increasing challenges of his illness, those prayers became more and more frequent. I'd imagine that Dr. Walder had been to many exotic and beautiful places in the world. He had many opportunities to travel. So I asked him once, I was like, what's the most exotic place you've been to? Eretz Yisrael. Dr. Walder saw a direct connection between his affiliation and the love of God and the love of God and the love of the land of Eretz Yisrael. Just this past Purim, I had the privilege of reading the Megillah to Dr. Walder, and despite his advanced illness, which had taken over his functionality, when we came to the name of Haman, he clapped his hands. Every Haman, he clapped his hands. Inherent in his blood was the automatic instinct of living as a Jew. Before I talk about Dr. Walder as a philanthropist, I want to take a moment to focus on the values behind the Walder Foundation. Because truthfully, these are the drives of the Walder Foundation, of the Walder family. These values give us insight into a giant of a man. Value number 1, humility. Despite his brilliant mind, Dr. Walder was the most approachable person I've ever met. No matter who came to seek his counsel, and there were many, many, many types, Dr. Walder spoke with everyone with kind of like an awe. He was excited to hear what you were nobody, but he was excited to hear what was going on in your life. It was so unique. Value number 2, optimism. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of ideas and innovations. Mordechai and Shira Malki, you know more, and Catherine, you know as well. Thousands, if not hundreds, if not thousands of ideas and innovations that Dr. Walder attempted to achieve. No setback could change his frame of mind. As far as I understood, Dr. Walder completely embraced the concept of Hashem running the world, and we try and do what we can. And sometimes we'll succeed, sometimes we won't succeed. That doesn't change it. Values number 3 and 4. Unity and collaboration. One merely needs to look around this room, and one can see how committed Dr. Walder was towards unity, and especially Jewish unity. I don't think there is a particular group in our city, in the world, that can claim that the Walder Foundation uniquely gave to them. I once had the privilege of asking Dr. Walder about challenges he faced while building his remarkable company. I wanted to know details, like what were the biggest challenges? How did you deal with difficult people? That was my real question. His response was so disappointing. He never had to deal with a difficult person. Always pay off if you can pay it off. He proudly shared that he never experienced a single dispute in his workplace, particularly not over financial matters. For him, maintaining harmony was paramount, and he would always choose to pay rather than engage in conflict. His unwavering commitment to peace and integrity left a profound impact. Our world stands on the foundation of shalom, of peace, and Dr. Walder stood as the embodiment of this principle. Value number 5, trust in God's plan. Those of you who met Dr. Walder over the past 5 years, no matter how difficult and how bleak his situation was, there was an unbelievable calmness and embrace and a trust. He didn't seem to worry about anything. And he had a lot on his shoulders. He always was a person who embraced the fact that we are just we're just pawns over here in a much, much bigger plan. And lastly, value number 6, a commitment to give back. Dr. Walder is a man of charity. Our sages tell us that the Torah began with chesed and it ended with chesed. This means that the entire Torah is characterized by loving kindness. But not all of us realize that the Walder family did not always come from wealth. Both Dr. Joseph, Yosef, and Shira Malka started off with very, very little. And yet they always gave. Or in Shira Malka's words, we always gave away most of what we made. We always gave away most of what we made. It's an unbelievable trait. An unbelievable trust in Hashem, an unbelievable commitment towards, I don't need anything. I need to just do what I can in order to give. It was so hard for me to comprehend a human being who could just keep giving and giving and giving, just barely taking the bare minimum for themselves. Shira Malka shared with me that Dr. Walder would go into a shoe store, he'd buy 10 pairs of the same pair of shoes, and he says, I'm set for the next 5 years, I don't need to buy another pair of shoes. But when it came to giving, everyone's project, big or small, they always had a lend a year and everyone walked away with a check of significant amounts. This act of loving kindness was characterized by the Walder's actions of tzedakah and charity. I remember coming over to discuss a project that we were involved in, and despite his illness, I came over to the house, and despite his illness, he asked if he could join the conversation. He wanted to be part of it, wanted to hear. We've lost the giant of a man in the field of loving kindness. As sages tell us that the festival of Purim that we just celebrated, the saving of the great miracle of the saving of the Jewish people came by through an act of loving kindness. Mordechai towards his niece Esther. And during the Egyptian exile, we were redeemed through that trait, through the merit of the loving kindness. Dr. Walder, you are an ish hachesed. You are a man of loving kindness. We, the Jewish people, are in need once again of a miraculous redemption. We beg of you, as your pure soul journeys up towards the holy throne of the Master of the world, we ask that you please beg of him that he release our brothers and sisters who are held hostage and bring our soldiers home, rid our enemies, bring peace and serenity to your beloved land of Eretz Yisrael with the coming of the Mashiach. B'mehera v'yameinu. Amen.
Rabbi Moshe Schmelzer came over.
El Mali Rachamim Shechein Bam Roimim Amzei Menuchon Lechoino Betel Kanfei Hashchina B'malois Kedoshim Etoirim Kezoyah Harakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Rabbi Yosef Walder Be'olach Li'olamoi Ba'avur B'mishpach B'nodach L'tzedakah B'araskoras Nishmasoi Began Eden Tei Menuchasoi L'chein Bal Rachamim Astireu b'seisu knofov li'olamim, Yitzroi b'tzroi achimus nishmasoi Adonai u'nachmasoi, Yonuach b'sholem u'mishkavoi v'neimar Amen.
This concludes the Levaya here. The crew will take place tomorrow, approximately 11 o'clock at Har Menuchas. There will be a Levaya before that at Shamgar. That information and the ship information will be updated on our website once we receive them a little later on.